there! I'm Crispy Matters, and you're not. Haha! Today, we're going to talk about something very serious. That's right, my friends. We're going to talk about the Dork farces, also known as the farces of Dorkness. You see, back in 1992, 32 years ago at the time of this filming, a book came out by this woman, which I only have on Kindle, Barbara Marciniak. This is her second book, and in that book, she called the bad guys the Lizzies. They are lizard-like in appearance and in activity sometimes. Some of them are actually working for the light. Most are not. Calling them the Lizzies and the dark t-shirts was a major breakthrough for humanity. Instead of cowering in fear of evil darkness. So, with that breakthrough by the Pleiadians, humanity began to shift into an awareness that there actually is only one thing in the omniverse, in existence. There is only one thing in existence, energy, and it's vibrating. And the best word I can think of for that is Godsciousness. Now, we do definitely have some elements or aspects of Godsciousness that are not very nice. I live in Hiroshima. I have personal friends who are survivors, and I teach the grandchildren of survivors, okay? This is my daily reality. And I'm here to tell you right now, 100% unequivocally. I tried to squeeze 100 and unequivocally into the same word in my little mind-brain thing there. Hiroshima and Nagasaki bombings were not evil. They were energy being used, and I would say some good has come of it. A lot of people say the whole emergence of ETs is directly due to that. Actually, what started on July 16th, 1945, the first bombing in Trinity, New Mexico. Trinity, 3 bombs. Interesting. Sure, there were some other ones, but nowhere near people. Anyway, what this video is really about is developing discernment for the false light, and for people who I like to call Dark-chemists. They are the ones who are claiming to teach the light, when in fact they are not. And guess what? They are not evil. Nothing is. One of their major tricks is trying to convince you there is evil. And by saying, we must fight it. And what we know about the law of attraction and a little flip side of that, what you resist persists. If you resist evil, you are automatically pulling it into your life. If you want to fight evil, it'll show up for you. That is what we are transcending here. Now, the whole debate or issue is another word for it, of the false light and Dark-chemists is the separation between soul or spirit or consciousness and the ego, which I like to call shadow ego, or evil, or the devil, or demons, what have you. We're basically talking about the difference between oneness and complete fragmentation. Now, the farces of darkness want you to believe that there is a eternal, grammar, an eternal battle between the forces of darkness and the forces of light. And on the 3D earth plane of ego, that is sort of true. It's not eternal whatsoever. It's one mistaken perception. It is a misperception. It is taught to us by the ego. And if you do A Course in Miracles, you will learn about these things more than I can tell you right now. But what I am going to tell you, first of all, are 7 red flags for how to spot a false light prophet, how to shine a light into the eyes of a Dark-chemist. Number 1, a Dark-chemist will be a very active ego. Their teachings might be under the category of a cult of personality or cult of ego. They might be very physically, strikingly beautiful, mesmerizing, fascinating. They will often have an aura of mystery about them. And if it's possible to find out enough about them, we'll usually find out they're often in the category of do as I say, not as I do. They can often be very judgmental, which also means racist, sexist, classist, meaning they really honor the financially well-to-do. And what they're out for, these ego-driven people, is control. They're out for fame. They're out for the most amount of followers and subscribers and everything imaginable. They often wear expensive clothing and they love the color black and white, interestingly enough. One thing I've noticed is they're usually very serious. They almost never laugh, or if they do, it's ha ha ha, or hee hee, whatever. They're never spontaneous. They're always very eloquent orators. They have a script that they've either memorized or that they're reading, and they'll almost never do anything spontaneous. They often use sarcasm. They might have thousands and thousands, or tens of thousands, or hundreds of thousands, or millions of followers. They could be very wealthy or not. They often claim some form of divine authority. They often claim to be perfectly correct in their wisdom. They will not tolerate people saying they're incorrect. They often have people between the world and them who buffer them and who protect them from these naysayers. And some of them make no public appearances whatsoever, shun all forms of social media, or once in a blue moon, although some of them are constantly on the various forms of social media. Some of them do constant face-to-face workshops. Some of them do constant one-on-one healing, energy work. And because of the fact of the placebo effect, some of them are extremely effective. Some of them are quite talented. And here we have a little bit of a conundrum. Like I said, no one is evil. That's an opinion, which is, again, very low vibration 3D awareness. It is completely untrue everywhere else in the omniverse. Now, perhaps you've heard of the term walk-in. And my understanding of a walk-in is a person born into a body, grows up, there's some kind of trauma or accident or something, and the body is ready to die or let go of this soul that first came into the body. And at that moment, another soul could come in, or entity. That's my understanding of a walk-in. There's another possibility that the soul does not even try to leave the body, or there's no major trauma, and that an entity can temporarily come into the body and control things, as it were. Now, these entities who come into these bodies, if it's a walk-in that's doing a soul contract arrangement with the previous soul in the body, that walk-in soul usually stays in that body for the duration. If it's a temporary thing, that entity that comes in temporarily is almost always from the lower astral planes, where the dark entities tend to hang out around our planet. And right now I want to give you a thought form, an idea, a meme that occurred to me last week. If you believe in the possibility of a walk-in, then what about the possibility of a double walk-in? A person has a walk-in experience of a being of light who comes in to teach, to share, to heal, to bring in the light, bringers of the dawn, as it were. That same physical entity could also have another walk-in, and it could be temporary. And that would only be a dork farce. It would not be another force of light walk-in. Now, the original walk-in might not even be aware of the dork farce that comes in temporarily. There's a lot of power going on that we don't really understand. But I just want you to think about that as a possibility for some of the massive egos out there in the world, the Dark-chemists. It might not be their own soul that we are watching. Just keep that in mind. All right, now, thing number 2, which I've already touched upon. A false prophet will tell you that we are in a spiritual war. We are in a war for our very souls. Now, this story is thousands of years old, and it's been used by what you could call the Lizzies, or the farces of darkness, to keep consciousness very low. And if you want to look at things in the framework of the chakras, just look at the chakras there, okay? All of war and conflict is the lower 3 chakras, all right? Love is the 4th. None of what they teach even touches on the 4th. It's all about control. The solar plexus chakra is willpower, self-control, and controlling others. And then the sacral chakra is, on the dark side, sexual perversion. And those two go very close together. Can't quite get there for you, but the yellow and the orange interact, create all of the sexual perversions and rape in the world. And then the root, the dark use of the root chakra, is terror, fear. The most fearful experience is terror, and it lives in your root chakra, and that's the only 3 that they are trying to convince you even exists. Oh, they might talk about love, and they usually dangle the carrot of love, but all they talk about is the spiritual war, and not even spiritual. Many, we'll call them religions, preach this physical war as well. There have been so many wars in our world that they even have the gall to call holy wars. There's no such thing. There never has been, there never will be. There's talk of the Luciferian inversions and all of that and everything, and they just want to permeate the brain and stick it in the war zone, which is down in the basement. And again, this is only from the perspective of ego. The soul knows nobody is evil. The soul knows there is no such thing as war, unless you want to pretend there is. But it's just pretend. It's not real. So thing number 1, cult of ego. Thing number 2, spiritual war. Thing number 3, with a false light teaching or a Dark-chemist, is hierarchy, enormous amounts of hierarchy in their cult or their religion or their circle of followers or just the teachings. There's levels that you have to reach, and they're often quite expensive. There's a lot of secrecy. There's private teachings to higher initiates, and the 33 levels and all of these things. They almost always involve more money and more time and more attention, more devotion, going back to the cult of ego. One amazing example of these first three is what we could call science frictionology. It's this bizarre new religion that has all of these incredible, fantastic ideas about how this earth is actually a prison, and this really bad guy, Lord Zakatak or something, came here with these souls of bad guys and blew them up with atomic weapons in volcanoes, and I guess their DNA spread all over the place, so every human is filled with all the badness of all of that. And if you just spend millions of dollars, you can go through all of these levels and get clear about some things. And they claim to want to clean the planet. They pretend they're actually working for all of humanity. So that church of science frictionology is a wonderful summation. There's a lot you can look into and learn all about the dork farces, learn all about especially those top three, cult of ego, spiritual war, and the hierarchy. It's truly amazing. There's also a lot of violence within that organization, and that brings me to number 4, spiritual gaslighting. Now, in the Church of Science frictionology, there's a lot of physical violence. In most of the other false light teachings, it's more spiritual, and that means emotional. It's people sending texts, it's calling, it's video conferences, it's Zoom calls, and basically what the false prophets, the Dark-chemists, are telling you is you are damaged. You and your traumas are the reason for all of your suffering, which has a lot of logic to it and is basically true, actually. Now, they use a double-pronged inversion of blaming the victim and then also blaming everyone else for all of your problems. They always tell you they can heal you too. One-on-one workshops, lots of money, honey. A prime example of this is the twin flame universe that also combines the first two, not particularly the eternal war, between good and evil, but they have said that your soul split itself, possibly at the beginning of the universe, so let's just say 13 billion years ago, whatever, and finally you found each other after 13 billion years, and now you've got a lot of problems. There's the runner and the chaser, and, you know, if you two break up, tough luck. 13.5 billion years wasted. Bit of a conundrum there. So therefore you have to put up with whatever the other one gives you, because it's 1 in 8 billion chance on the planet and once in 13.5 billion years or whatever. So too bad about that. If they're not really into that so much, they'll go on and on and on about the whole narcissist and empath drama. Because basically they're narcissists. That's what I'm saying. This whole thing is a purely egotistical fantasy, which is narcissism. And boy, they're experts on it, wouldn't you know? Now, the real thing about the narcissist and the empath, both people are traumatized, and they both need each other. You can't have one without the other. Or if you do, they just wander around incomplete. So they'll do a lot of teaching about that. And you know what? Again, because of the placebo effect, and not only that, like, people want to heal themselves, and they can receive benefits from a lot of the Dark-chemists. You can receive benefits just from a quick Google search too. So now, with the spiritual gaslighting, there's also a lot of unsolicited advice, which is judgmental and often sarcastic or very biting or cutting. And I know personally friends who've experienced this, and I've experienced it a little bit myself. And if you come back to them and say, actually, no, and you voice your own opinion, they might say things like, you're projecting your trauma on me. You're confusing your ego dramas for mine. Your perceptions do not resonate with reality. If you think what I'm doing is ego, you cannot even perceive that I'm always acting in my divine integrity, because you are not, and you are not in alignment with the law of one principles, or you are not in alignment with the Christos. And that brings me directly to point 5. Dark-chemists, false light teachings, align themselves with some other form of light, of truth, like Yeshua ben Yosef and the Christed One, the teachings of the Christed One, and or Egyptian, and or the Buddha, and Pleiadians, and Arcturians, and other ETs. Recently, in the last 10 years, that's become, 32 years ago, Bringers of the Dawn, the first Pleiadian book, was released. And about that time, the first Starseed book was released. This was his second book, yeah. Interesting story. Ken Carey's download happened on my 10th birthday. He went into a trance the day I turned 10, and he downloaded what became Starseed, the new millennium. And I'm 55, so that was 45 years ago, so that was before the first Pleiadian book. Interestingly, though, Timothy Leary wrote the first book called Starseed when I was 4 years old, 1972. Anyway, where was I? All right. These Dark-chemists claim allegiance with the Law of One or A Course in Miracles or any one of these teachings. Atlantis is a big one. The whole dragon phenomenon, especially this year being one of the years of the dragon, the previous most recent one was 2012. So there's a lot of dragon Dark-chemists out there claiming things that may or may not be true. But along with aligning with those other teachings, they also incorporate things like angel numbers and sacred geometry. But watch out for those inversions. That's evil. See, they say there's so much evil in the world. And that's how you know it's a false light teaching. The real light says there is no such thing as evil. And that is the only truth. So these false light prophets love to talk about prophet. They are a prophet, a lot of them. There's so many manifesting workshops, abundance workshops, manifesting abundance workshops, and they like to use things like the new economy and spiritual economy. And money can be used spiritually. It pretty much isn't at all in the world. And here's the real thing. Money does not exist. It's fake. There is actually no such thing as money. It's a game we're playing temporarily. It has only existed for a few thousand years in most of the world. The Maya did not have money until the Spanish arrived. They traded cacao and quetzal feathers and shells and art and carvings and food and clothing. The Maya have only had money in their lives for 500 years, and it's all been controlled by the Lizzies. Still is. Hee hee. All right. One other aspect of money that needs mentioning is cryptocurrencies. It is a fake version of a fake thing. It's a concept. Money is a concept. It is not actually real. Value is a concept. How much is this worth? Well, today it's worth this much. Oh, and it's changing. Now it's changing. Oh, it's changing. And the currency of all of the countries in the world is always changing. It's bullshit. Complete and total bullshit. It's a tool. It can be used spiritually. Yes. I'm not saying that all of these teachings are false light. But one thing that is true is all teachings that say, look outside you for fulfillment and happiness, is the false light. If they're saying the chasing of money and the getting of it is what makes you happy, then it's a lie. It's a complete lie. Keep that in mind. Number 6. Qualities of false light teaching and dark prophets or Dark-chemists is an overwhelming amount of information. A lot of it which is contradictory, a lot of it which is confusing. There are so many books you need to buy, so many courses you need to take, so many pages and pages of websites and videos you need to watch. It's a compartmentalization of information that is not about oneness. Remember, the soul experiences oneness. What we're doing here on planet Earth is transcending the ego so that we can re-experience oneness. We did need to come down into the physical and experience fragmentation, and now we're heading back to oneness. So anything that is chopping up reality into smaller pieces and telling you you're in a war and I think you understand what I'm saying. Yeah? Now, number 7, the last red flag that I can tell you for today is the false light prophets will tell you their way is the only way. They will say, do not look at anyone else's way. Now, if you just picture, ascension as being like climbing up a mountain, you automatically know there's a lot of ways to the top. So anyone who's telling you their way is the only way is a false prophet. They are part of the dork farces. You should go, no thanks. Move on. So, those are 7 red flags. Now, once you're aware of those things and looking for those things, we have solutions. First of all, being aware of those things is part of the solution in itself, of course. But there's 3 others that I think are equally important. Number 1, trust your intuition. Trust your feeling. Trust your heart. When you read this information, when you watch a video, do you feel love coming from this person? Love, acceptance, oneness, openness. That's it. That's really all you need to know. Do you feel calm? Do you feel peace? If you're not really sure, here's a simple thing to do. Close your eyes. Put your left hand on your heart and say, is this true? You can also say, is this a teaching of light? You can say, is this a teaching of love? Anything you want to ask. You need to quiet the ego, put the ego down, connect with your heart chakra, and ask that question. Number 2 gets back to these 7 red flags I've mentioned. I'm calling number 2 solution, be lovingly skeptical. Don't be ego-skeptical. Be curious. Be open-minded. Ask questions, seek evidence, use your critical thinking skills. Communicate with a diversity of people about this teacher or their teachings or whatever it is. Now, number 3 is a combination of numbers 1 and 2. Number 1, connect with your heart. Number 2, use your logic. So, heart in the head, your left brain logic, your right mind for your heart, combining your logic and intuition. This is part of transcending the shadow ego. So, those 3 solutions, use your intuition, use your mind, and combine them. That's really what we're doing here, my friends. When you do this, along with the wisdom that actually nothing is evil, you have transcended the shadow ego, the farces of darkness. Can't touch this. You are above and beyond. You already are, my friend. You no longer need that level of awareness. The new level is heart awareness, is the ground floor now. These 3 are in the basement. They're not bad or evil or wrong. When they are used with light, they are wonderful, perfect, and crucial. All of the chakras are. There's no bad chakras, come on. But when you're operating with your ground floor being your heart chakra, this, my friend, is the new 5D earth. It is the upper room. It is heaven on earth. Nothing can bring you down. You are an eternal soul having a very temporary human experience. And isn't it wonderful? It is so fantastic. It is so precious. By the way, if you're not familiar with my work, through Mayan embodiment astrology, we can learn how to harmonize our divine feminine and our divine masculine and pull them into the heart chakra. That is my mission and my purpose, to teach. I would love to help you in that way, my dear. So that is all. That is all for Crispy for today. Inakesh alakim. Namaste.